Glad everybody could join us today. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us for this webinar that we're hosting today. I'm going to quickly go over the agenda, and then I'll introduce myself and the team that have joined us today. So after the introduction of the team, we're going to go over a very quick company presentation. So who we are as T.CON and who our customer is, Feldmuehle, who's joining us today. Then we're going to go over the project and the system architecture. So the project which we've done at Feldmuehle and the system architecture that we aim for, and also the roadmap going forward. Then we will go into a demo of the sales order and entry and planning process. We will then demo our trim suite solution. So that's the solution from T.CON, which is implemented at Feldmuehle. And we will also then demo our MES system called MES Cut. At the end, if there's a little bit of time left over, we will then go into a Q&A session. So there we go. Next slide, please. Good. So this is the team that is joining us today. So we are lucky enough to have Katja Kuppe from Feldmuehle, who's a manager of production planning. She'll be introducing and telling us a little bit about Feldmuehle here in a second. Then from my side, so my name is Bradley Robb. I've been with T.CON since 2017, and I'm responsible for our international business development in the mill industry. Then I'm joined by my two colleagues, Sasha Mihalovic, who's a T.CON solution architect for the mill industry, an expert with many years of experience in SAP and the mill industry area, as well as our trim suite product owner, Gerhard Goebel, who's the next gentleman in line. And you'll hear from all of us today. Next slide, please. Good. So we'll go into T.CON and Feldmuehle. So just T.CON at a glance. So it's important to know we've been in business since 1999, so over 20 years of experience. We started developing in 2002 our own software, and that was actually our MES solution. In 2002, with the first implementation in 2003. So this year, our MES solution is celebrating its 20-year anniversary. That was started at our customer Köhler Paper, located in southern Germany, and they're still a proud customer of ours today. We're 100% owner managed. You see a picture of our owners and management board up above. We have 80% of the work we do is in the manufacturing industry, with 240 customers in over 30 countries worldwide. We go wherever our customers need us to go. And we have 40 plus partners that we work with today. So those are some of the key figures. Next slide, please. So our goal is to provide the best SAP system for our customers. That's one of the messages our CEO likes to preach. And how we see doing that is you have people, so the people using it from an operational point of view, the users are key. You have a technological foundation on how to maximize and leverage the strengths of those people, and you have the business requirements. And we see all of those three combined if you cross those all over and do that on a technological platform that you trust. In our case, that's SAP. That builds a reliable solution for the industry that you can trust. In addition to that, it's very important as a solution provider who does everything based on SAP technology, that everything we do, we're very proud at the moment, as long as that's still an option, to be a proud gold partner. But it's also important, all large solutions that we have developed in-house on our own are certified by SAP, which means that we've certified that they work with current and future releases of SAP, so near future releases, as well as that we provide a roadmap, support, and documentation that ensures that customers can rely on the solution for years to come. Good. So we don't have time to go into an in-depth overview of all of our customers today. Here's an excerpt of some of our customers out of various different industries. We cover a large batch of mill customers from paper packaging, but there's also additional customers that we do all types of work with in the SAP environment. And if you look here on this slide, you can get a selection of our mill customers. So kind of what SAP defines as mill, everything from photo printing paper, board, packaging, plastic packaging, bubble packaging, and of course our customer today who produce labels, Feldmuehle.
Hello.
Good.
Yeah, Brett?
Yep,
Okay.
go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Feldmuehle is a paper producer with an over 100 years history. And yeah, we are producing on one paper machine with a production capacity of 75,000 tons per year. And other further machines we have is for rewinding, sheet cutting, and for embossing. And yeah, Feldmuehle is producing wet strength label papers and flexible packaging paper. And yes, sustainability is one of our main goals. Between 18 and 21, we have reduced our specific water consumption by more than 65%. And yeah, our restructuring programs in last years and further projects will make us fit for the future.
Yeah, Katja, that's right. So to give you a first overview what we did in the past with Feldmuehle together as T.CON and what we will do in the future, or what we want to do in the future, we prepared a short project history and take a look into the past and a little bit in the future. So all of the story began in 2015 when Feldmuehle was cut off from Stora Enso company, and we did a carve-out project and implemented an ERP, SAP ERP, with core processes like sales and distribution, order creation, rough planning and production within 8 months of project implementation period. So for the next 5 years, we did not many changes in the area of SAP. We tried some optimization, but then in 2020, we decided that we have to think new and to think about a new architecture based 100% on SAP. That was the idea. And we had a design phase and architecture phase from about 3 months. And the result documents were concept, project plan, cost estimation. And then the project was born, our project Bob, with the slogan, "Yes, we can." We were sure that can be possible 100% of SAP. And yeah, in 2021, then we had a nearly full-scale implementation. We threw everything away and started on the scratch again and implemented nearly all modules you can imagine in SAP. Some of them are mentioned on this slide, but we will go in more depth then later on. Yeah, in the end of 2021, we went live and decided in 2022 to optimize our processes of, for example, dashboarding, reporting, but especially advanced trimming methods we will present later on in the demo. And now we stand in 2023 plus, and we decided to think about a roadmap to 22 or 2026, and something like an S/4HANA conversion, quality management, transportation management are modules and topics we are thinking about and we are preparing actually for the future. So the next slide gives you an overview of the processes we implemented in this period, and you can see in the background the systems, the main systems in the architecture, which is at this stage an SAP ECC system. As I mentioned before, we are thinking about and we're planning the S/4HANA conversion with an PPDS as an add-on installed, which is nearly the same like an embedded PPDS in the S4 installation today. And additionally, we have in the bottom line here our MES system, where we can all do the confirmation of jumbo reels, rolls, pallets, and so on. And a few of the main topics you can also see are here the block planning scenario for different grades in the production paper grades. We do trim optimization to reduce waste. And after all these, we can create cutting plans and send them to the MES system to do all the operational stuff. And last but not least, we do have implemented a global availability check capable to promise. That means while the order creation process, we directly check against the production capacities and possibilities. And that will be also a part of the demo on the next slide. So to give you a deeper idea of what we are doing while creating a customer order, we designed this slide to explain it, what you will see afterwards. We create in the SAP system a customer order line, for example, for 200 tons to a requested delivery date, for one paper grade with specification like widths and lengths from rolls, core types, or something like that. And first of all, we plan the transportation and the loading time, and then we have the XML date, which is relevant for the production. And then, of course, we have to check against the capacities for the production, for example, the pallet packaging station, or all the other relevant work center we have to use to produce paper. For example, the cross-cutting, the roll winding, or the jumbo reel production, where we have certain blocks, certain grades, which are produced in a period of time. And as you can see, the today line in red marked here will, for example, say that it's not possible to produce on time to the requested delivery date. And that's the situation where we use extended order generation in the SAP system, in the PPDS. And especially there, the part for stock evaluation, for example, to ask the system if we have finished goods on the finished goods level, which are free for stock and which we can use, or if they are not available on this stage, perhaps we have semi-finished goods, which for pellets, which have, for example, other dimensions, and we can go through the guillotine and cut them off, or, for example, in exactly the same widths and lengths. Last but not least, and that's the scenario we will present later on, for example, on the roll stock level, that we don't have to produce new rolls. We can use rolls which are free from stock, and we can cut them off into the pellets. And then, perhaps with a certain period of time, we can cut them off on the cross-cutting machine, and we can delivery in the requested time. That's the scenario we want now to demo with you together. And therefore, first of all, I want to share my screen in the SAP system. So I hope that this will work. I will give the keyboard and the mouse to Katja. Katja will now guide us through the system, and I will explain a little bit what you can see while Katja is, for example, creating a customer order or an order line. And we will start in the planning board, which you can see here. This planning board is standard PPDS planning board. Within the upper area time scale, where we can see the date and the time. And in the colored boxes, you see blocks which are predefined periods for certain grades. In this case, Feldmuehle produces a product which is named label set. And in this block, our orders will be put directly by the order creation process. So we see in the lines the work center, for example, the paper machine or winders, embossers, cross cutters, and so on. And as you can see here, the block has a smaller slot left for about, I think it must be 2 hours about. And the next step will be that we create a customer order for, let us say, around about 21 tons, which will fit in this block. So we will present creating a customer order which directly checks against this capacity. So please, Katja, go into the order creation. The other mode, yeah. You can see here a standard customer order. And as you see, we have 2 positions which are marked gray. We have prepared them, and you can see that we have a width and the length and a grain direction and sheet interval and so on. Several characteristics which are important for the mill industries to specify the products. And in this case, we have 21 tons prepared. And Katja can now reactivate this position because it's on hold, actually. You can see transaction is being checked. Now, please, Katja. Yeah. This one, please. This one above. There. Yes. So, and now everything, what happened is now nobody, the system is clear and everything is fine. And if we change now to the planning table, please go to the planning table and refresh it. One there, yes. You can see that automatically in the background, the customer order, while creation, in the creation, meantime, the order is put into this block and we have checked against the capacity on the paper machine. So now you can see that the block is quite full. There is no big slot left, time slot. And we can try to put another position in this. Let's try it. And what you can see here now is the system says it's not possible. We cannot deliver in time because the block is full. And the delivery proposal is mentioned for August, somewhere in the middle of August. And that's because we have another block in August. So please switch what's against into the block planning table. Yeah. And scroll a bit right so that we can see the August. Yeah, there it was. So what you can see that now there is an order and the system says it's possible to deliver there, somewhere in August, which means the system checked backwards, and if it's not possible, then afterwards forwards to the future when the next delivery date could be possible. In our scenario, as we mentioned, that's not what we want. We don't want to deliver late. We want to deliver in time. And therefore, we now go into the customer order and trigger the system to say, no, let's try to check against stock. And that's the special thing here. Please go into the configuration. Yes. And now planner. So we can tell the customer order to do another strategy. And now we check against row stock for a certain level, in this case, for the level of roles which are free to use. Yes, please. And now back again, yeah. And once there. And what you can see is that the system behavior now is we get a pop-up. And in this pop-up, the system says to us which roles are free to use for us. You see some crosses above. This means there are already some reservations, perhaps only partly, on these roles. And Katja will now take, for example, a few roles out of it. Let's take these 5, please, where these crosses are. Yes. And these are the roles we will later on use to cut them off and to deliver in time. Yes, of course. Please, Gerhard, ask.
I think one important thing to mention is that the sales order line item that we just created is for sheeting. Yeah. So what we are actually doing now is we check the stock situation, checking roles that are free on stock to be used on the cross-cutting line. Yeah. We're not cutting reels to reels in this case, but it's cutting on the cross-cutting line, consuming free stock.
Yes, that's the scenario. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, then please go further on. Okay, that's it. We can take a look. The system says everything is fine. We can take a look into the line items if everything is fine. Item overview or procurement. Go into the procurement part. Yeah. And there we can see everything is fine. The requested delivery date was somewhere in the June, and the material availability date is also there. So that means we can deliver in time. And that means we can make our customer happy, or Feldmuehle can make their customer happy. And therefore, please save this. And now, yes, please. Yeah, yes. They are all okay. And now the question is, what will happen in a situation where we have several customer orders with several dimensions, lengths, and widths on certain levels, like a roll winder, or we have a cross-cutting line, different demands, different supplies, like stocks in this scenario. And that is something we solve with our trim suite, which will Gerhard now tell you how this works. And therefore, we start with a short presentation of the trim suite and some slides to it.
Okay, then I will take over. Thank you very much, Katja and Sasha, for what you demonstrated so far. This is the presentation, right?
Yes, that's the presentation.
So what you saw so far was actually like planning aspects that we kind of label as rough planning. So it's like a very early engagement of production planning, logic, even as early as in the sales order entry, to make sure that whatever we promise to the customer is valid and reliable. Yeah. Of course, at the end of the day, one of the most important aspects of planning or time planning for customers in mill is, of course, the planning of the cutting patterns, so the trim optimization. As you probably all know, this is one of the most important aspects of fine planning in mill, because there you can define or burn money or define the efficiency of production. So it's a very important piece of logic that is needed. At the same time, we have to state that this is like a functionality that is not available with an SAP standard. Yeah? So although SAP is trying to model the complete order to cash process, and although many customers try to create their SAP footprint as significant as possible, this piece is missing, which leads to the problem that if you try to manage all of your order to cash using SAP, there is like a main piece missing, and customers within projects have to integrate third-party trim applications. And this is why T.CON came up with Trim Suite 8 years ago. So Trim Suite is basically an SAP technology-based trim optimization suite, completely coded in ABAP. So it's an add-on in ABAP that is certified by SAP. We state that we can actually install it using transports and set it up within a day. So it's using regular customizing. It's based on master data. And as it's coded in ABAP, it can also be enhanced using the same enhancement options that you know from all the other SAP standard applications. It's using tool optimization, using the common technique used in optimization is linear programming in that area with a flexible definition of targets. The most important topic is that Trim Suite is fully integrated into SAP in two aspects. It's, as I just mentioned, it's on a technology level fully integrated because it's coded in ABAP, yeah, so it's full SAP native coding. And it's also fully integrated from a business or scenario aspect, because we can start trimming out of any SAP planning application. We have a few customers who are not using PPDS or APO, but they stay in classical BP. There we can start trimming out of COIS, the order information system. But commonly we implement PPDS, and there trim is wrapped as a heuristic that can be executed from any planning application that is supporting heuristics, which is basically any planning application in PPDS. From there we start trimming, and at the end of the day, when trimming is done, we also create combined orders, which is very much appreciated by most of our customers, because then you have like a condensed view of trim results in the planning board, and combined orders are relevant also for the costing aspects at the end of the day. I will demo the creation of the so-called trim sheet orders in the next minutes. From a geometry perspective, we cover the cutting of reels out of jumbos, of course, which is the main topic in paper production. We also cover creation or cutting of sheets out of reels. One upcoming topic these days is corrugated, which is also kind of sheeting, but they are typically duplex or triplex lines are utilized, and we have multiple levels of stock to be considered. And like last but not least, also we can use trim suite to define cutting patterns for long products, such as cores that you might need for winding of papers or cutting of tubes and anything else which is one-dimensional. One more slide. As you just saw in the rough planning demo, we had actually two scenarios that happened. Yeah, we had like orders that ended up on the paper machine in a block. Yeah, so for that case, we will, as a next demo, do a so-called resource-based trimming, where actually nothing on the mother reel level, on the jumbo level, is on stock. So we will do the trimming with respect to the dimensions that the paper machine is available to deliver. And this will also include a so-called multi-stage optimization, because as you just saw, within the block, we have orders that are sold to the customers where we have to produce reels and pack them, but we also have orders for sheeting. So we will have to cut some so-called process reels because we will never fit a jumbo reel into the cross-cutting line. So this is then a multi-stage optimization. And the second demo that we just saw was like the stock-based or the stock identification out of the sales order entry. For this case, we will do a second demo in trimming, which is a stock-based scenario. So let me switch back to the system and let me go back to the block that we just saw. Let's have a look at the block, which is pretty crowded, and let's start trimming. In this system, trim is basically a heuristic. So we just select the block. We go into this block, and we are now still within the planning board of SAP's PBDS, but we are now within the add-on called Trim Suite. So what you can see here is actually the challenge that we have to solve. So this is the list of orders that are passed by selecting the block. So we can see here that we have 4 line items that represent sheet orders, followed by like a sequence of orders that ask for reels. You can see the planned order numbers on the cutting level. You can see the sales order assignment. You see all the dimensions that are read dynamically from the characteristics of variant configuration. Of course, like the real dimensions in the case of real orders, and here we see the sheet dimensions in the case of sheeting. Of course, we have the quantity that was requested, which can be in weight, in area, or in pieces. We also have tolerance information out of sales order entry. So all relevant information that we need to know is available. The next thing to show is actually the list of technical restrictions. Yeah, we have to, of course, know very precisely the technical limitations and possibilities of the lines. So for the various lines that are part of the production, for the paper machine, the winders, and the sheeting line, we always have like a loading section. We have like a cutting section that includes the number of knives, the side losses, stuff like that. And let's finally check the width of the paper machine, which in the case of Feldmuehle, the PM1, is 2.90 meters. What else do we see? We have 2 more tabs I would like to mention at this point. In some cases, actually, the workload of orders will not trim very well. This always depends on the quantities and the mix of orders and dimensions. So sometimes there is a need to improve the trim result, and actually we provide 2 options to do that. The one I would like to mention is the clipboard of orders. This is basically a list of orders that is not part of the current block, but that is part of future blocks for the same block basic definition. Yeah? So eventually, in case of trouble, the planner might include the one or the other of these orders to improve the current cutting plan. In addition, we have a tab of standard dimensions. This is something that is used at Feldmuehle quite well. This is like a set of dimensions that can be defined per grade, where the customer doesn't mind to produce some reels or some pallets of sheet on stock, knowing that this can be sold or reused in a later stage. So based on this information, we can try to create now a solution. So let's create a first solution and start the optimization. And hopefully within a few seconds, you will see a multi-stage result. Yeah, so the result now that you see on the left side is the graphical visualization of the cutting patterns. We have two sections. We have the primary cutting plan on the top. Let me show that and focus on this one. So this is the primary creation of reels. The blue ones actually reflect to the orders that we have for reels, while the green ones are process reels that Trim came up with. Those are the reels that are actually then used on the secondary cutting stage. Yeah, whatever was green on the first part is consumed on the secondary cutting stage and used for sheeting. And let's go back to the summary to get the full picture. In addition, you see that one reel is dark or brown. This is actually one reel that is, or two reels that are created with respect to the standard dimension. So this is a true make-to-stock production. So overall, you can see the coverage of the orders, which is very well within the limits. Yeah, so Trim will always deliver, of course, solutions that are valid with respect to all technical restrictions and all requirements that are passed by the customer. Of course, this whole thing is also very interactive, so the planner can drag and drop and manually adjust the plan if needed. And let's have again a look at the primary slitting plan, because on the bottom right you see the gross quantity that is needed from the paper machine, including the side losses, which is roughly 177 tons in this case, where roughly 1 ton is like loss that in the perfect Trim case would be 0. So in this case we have a net loss of roughly 0.6%. One question that, of course, has to be raised is how does Trim decide which of the many solutions that, of course, are feasible to solve this problem is selected by the optimizer? And this actually can be answered by looking at the penalty costs. Yeah? So we, of course, have always the requirement to minimize losses. But it's also clear that minimizing loss is not the only target that has to be considered in doing Trim optimization. So as you can see here, we have a second penalty cost being used, which means, or which declares that we would like to try to hit the target quantity requested by the customer as close as possible. And another one, of course, is related to the cutting section. Yeah? Knife changes are, depending on the lines being involved, more or less painful. So on the winder level, we also added penalty costs for the setup of the cutting section. And looking at the penalty costs of the cross-cutting line, of course, we have two cutting lines and therefore different amount of pain on different topics for each of those lines. You can see that we also have, of course, penalty costs for the losses, but we also, if I scroll down here, you can see that we have penalty costs for production time. What does it mean? By putting penalty costs for the production time, we can make sure that the system tries to make the process fields as big as possible to utilize the cutting line as efficiently as possible.
One question from my side, Gerhard.
Of course.
I picked some rows for the stock level on the winder level. Where can I see now the rows, and how can I do something like Trim from stock in this scenario?
Yeah, I will answer this in a minute.
Okay.
The first thing I would like to demo is what will happen if, what we created in Trim here, if we accept this one, how does the planning board change?
Okay.
So this is one more thing that I would like to demo. So I saved the solution without creating other ones, and let me quickly do a little bit of no. Let me scroll to the right then. Sorry. Let's have a look at the combined order. Yeah, as you can see here now, in difference to what you saw before, we have a single planned order now on the winder level and a single order on the paper machine level. So let's have a look at this order. This is a so-called trim sheet order. This is a combined order. This is again SAP standard. So this is one planned order or production order running on the winder. This is asking for exactly the 170 tons that we saw in trimming for a width of 2,900 millimeters. And this one has a huge set of outputs which represent whatever we produce on the winding level. So you see all the line items that have a sales order assignment. Those are the reels that directly are packed and shipped to the customer. And all the make-to-stock lines that you see here are either process reels that go to the cross-cutting line, and for that reason, of course, they are make-to-stock. And one of them, this one here, has a little alert because this is the one that is created based on the standard dimensions. There is no demand needing this one. And for that reason, this one has a little surplus. This is why
it can be a future stock for next trim from stock scenario.
As soon as I save this one here, this one is visible and can already be consumed in the next sales order entry, as we just saw it before. As the next thing, I would like to answer your question, Sasha. You just asked about the trim for those sheeting orders that didn't plan down the clock, but which made reservations on some of the reels that we had on free stock. So for this, we go into a different planning application, which is actually the Zugangssicht, I don't know the English word, supply view. And in here we can select, actually using an extended selection, those orders that actually automatically assign to stock in the sales order entry. So let's go in here, and we can see that one of them is the line item that Katja just created, and we have two more. So let's select all of them, and again start trim as a heuristic. So we go in there, and you see the same picture, it's the same application. There is a small deviation. We also have another tab with the supply. Those are the reels that were selected by marking the line items in the sales order entry pop-up. So this is like the proposal from sales. In addition, on the clipboard of supply, we see everything that is on free stock in the system. So let's assume that those reels will work well. So we just create a solution and start the optimization again. And we can see in this case that trimming made sense, because now we can see that by utilizing only 4 reels of one of the widths that was selected in sales, we can, by doing combinations, efficiently cut whatever we need for the sheeting out of those reels.
Okay, and when you now save?
If I save this one, we will actually convert those orders, the trim sheet orders on the cutting levels, on the winder and on the cross-cutting line, of course, but also paper machine orders and everything else. And then actually we store the cutting patterns with respect to the cutting orders, the cutting patterns in detail, and everything will go automatically into MES Cut, and we are ready to execute production.
Okay.
And this would be now the part that Bradley will demo.
Okay, Bradley, then I would switch the presentation on again for you, for the MES. And that will be your part here. And please tell me if I have to click the next slide. Yeah.
Just a quick comment to the participants. So there's been a handful of questions that have come in. So we haven't missed those. We're going to save those Q&A until the end of the session. So we're trying to get through what we're talking about today. So those haven't been forgotten. And if you other participants have any questions as we're presenting, please feel free to enter them in. They didn't get lost. And we'll try to address them at the end. And even at the end, we can reply to questions afterwards. So feel free. So I'll present a little bit about our T.CON solution, so MES Cut. MES Cut got started at our first paper customer, Köhler, back in 2002 with a go live in 2003. It was originally Cat with a K instead of a C. And that's how we got started there. And that's where we started developing our own solutions based solely on SAP technology. So as I mentioned earlier, every major solution that we have provided on the SAP platform is certified by SAP, including MES Cut and the Trim Suite solution. The advantages that brings to companies is you have an integrated platform where you're having the advantages, the niche requirements you need for the paper packaging and anyone else in the mill industry, while having the benefits of the the tool set that SAP has provided in the background. In addition to that, we've come up with ways to make the MES solution offline capable. So ways in which, if you have remote located sites, or you can't always ensure the infrastructure is going to be maintained, or if you're doing updates to the central ERP system, despite the integration, you can still keep producing and not lose data. In addition to that, you have a lower technical cost of ownership. So it's all based on SAP technology. So you're basically, if your team knows SAP, then they, for the most part, know T.CON products, as you just saw with Trim Suite. And of course, as an SAP partner, as we are, we need to make sure we keep up with what SAP is doing. And so that means we're invested in these solutions and into the future on the SAP platform. Next slide, please. Good. Anyway, so we have our core system, which is MES Cut, what you see in the blue block down below. That we generally try to follow the ISA 95 requirements as close as possible. The recommendations for Mesa is having it close to the shop floor as possible. Of course, it can be hosted in the ERP system if needed. But in addition to that, there's other technological advantages that SAP is allowing for its partners. So for the S/4HANA system, for example, we have Trim Suite and, for example, a mobile maintenance solution, as well as we are considering areas where it makes sense to move applications into the cloud, where it makes sense on that platform. But because it's one system, we see that as one platform with thought through end-to-end processes, a single point of truth, for example, one set of master data, a consistent user interface. So you'll see that in a second when we look at MES Cut. It has a lot of SAP technology behind it, so it's a similar user experience as the ERP system, as well as you saw with Trim Suite. So state-of-the-art technology, so the newest tools that SAP is bringing out, we are making sure to utilize those, and all of those together, we believe, bring efficiency for your customer. Next slide, please. Go ahead. So, yeah, you can update them all, please. Great. So what we generally tend to have and what we recommend for our customers, I mean, most cases they have a single instance located globally somewhere in the world, but we had a number of customers that are producing in Brazil, China, wherever, and you never know, A, if the infrastructure is going to hold up, and B, also if you're doing something like an S4 transition, how are you going to make sure you can continue to produce while that is going on? And so currently at the moment, we have a capability to install MES Cut on a local NetWeaver stack on location. In the future, that will be an own S4 instance, which is possible to install it on. And that allows the data to be solved and synced back to the central ERP system. And we've built a tool for that called our ERP link, which allows the syncing of the data and also the correct queuing of the data to the various different modules in the SAP system. Next slide, please. Good. Anyway, I was going to show a quick look and feel of one of the test systems from Feldmuehle, just so we can get a look on how that is looking on that side. I will start sharing my screen. One second. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
We can see
Sasha,
it. Yes. Yeah,
okay, great. So as you can see here, it's running in my local browser. It's a browser-enabled functionality, but this is MES Cut. But you can see if you know the Fiori user interface right away, it becomes familiar immediately. But what we'll get into is when we start looking at one of the work centers, you'll see how it is specifically designed for the mill industry. What you have here is, of course, a user touch-enabled device. I mean, it's the tiles that you know. It is also possible to open, we have a client which opens up a browser view without, of course, the navigation bar if that's desirable. But this can be open on any mobile device. So one thing I'm going to take a look at very quickly, let's say you are a shift supervisor that's coming in at the beginning of the day. And you want to see what's going on in your work centers. And because this is a test system, you can see here, for example, we were looking at the real work center. So where mother reel production is going on. I don't have any live data, but this actually on the left is color coded to show what is the status on the machine at the moment. Because this is a test system, there's no live interface, but you would, for example, be able to see if this machine is in production, if there's a downtime. In addition to that, you can see, the OEE. I wasn't able to keep up with the amount that is produced to create the performance desired, but it shows. We'll take a look at that in more detail, and then you can see the planned planned start and stop dates, as well as the current estimates based on the production that has happened already. It is also possible to dive more in detail and look at some more information. You can see who is logged in. You can see some OEE information, and you can see a timeline of the last period with the valid codes that are applied to that system. Okay, that's just kind of one handy view that is good for example, a production supervisor who's coming in at the beginning of the day. But let's take a look at what a work center looks like. So we'll look at the slitting machine in this case. You can have a shift log on. You can do that, of course, so via card scanner or various different options. And then we have an activated order up here above. I think it's important to show you can see all the released orders for this work center, as well as a visualization of the slitting plan for that released order set. So here's where you would see the results that came out from what Gerhard had earlier. As far as the results are concerned, we can save that, we can activate it, and you can see it populates the initial scene. So here you can have the various here you record the outputs that come out of production. In this case, I'm going to enter it manually. In most cases, we generally do this, or recommend that customers do this as automated as possible or via machine interfaces. I think it's important to show, we'll give an example. We have our input reel here. Let's say we need to select another reel, so we can remove that. We don't want to print a label. We can go into our pick list, and you can see what other reels are available to select. We can set that as the input reel, and then that reel will be here available. And then so when we match the output, it will actually then calculate the remaining reel length based on the input reel that was selected. There's various different pieces of information we could go through, or we won't have the time to go into in so much detail, but we can cover things such as waste, do the coordinates of defects that are part of the reels that are slitted. You can look at the number of sets. You can even adjust the patterns. But it's a lot of information that can be calculated. This is only a selection of what is also possible. So what we can do at the end, we got to start the set. We can finish the set, and then I can post that. And then I'm missing the scrap. Look. Anyway, I'm going to have to find a new reel before we do that and kind of waste time. I'll kind of go into the next section. I need to
ask you one question, Brad.
Sure. Go ahead.
Do I have to put all the data manually in this screen, or is it possible?
No, you don't. In this case, I have to type it in as a test system, but generally it can be automatically taken over by meters or other machine interfaces, and then or there's also data inputs. You can pull the information from the system, but that's generally not the case. That we would recommend doing it all manually, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think another thing that's important to point out here, if I go back to the main board, this is not, of course, what a normal user would see on a day-to-day basis. I have the admin overview, so I can see all the applications we have set up here. A user on the work center would, of course, only see the machine, which is kind of a big concern when we do these demos and do these presentations for someone for manufacturing. They're worried about overwhelming the user. They would generally tend to only see this overview. Okay, I'll take one last piece of information. We have some of the information. Let's see, one second. Evaluations.
Top right.
Yep. Okay, so in this example, what I have is I have a lot of the codes hidden. We want to kind of keep a little bit some of the information, but this is an actual view that we have from Feldmuehle. So this is an analytics dashboard that we have, and it provides a number of codes and an overview of various different KPIs and important things, for example, for their morning meeting with production. And so here, in this example, you'd be able to here see the number of mistakes or the number of defects that have happened and the types of defects based on the codes. This would normally be selected here. You have the speed and type of production that's going on. We have the types of waste. So here we have various different types of codes. This is hidden here, but in this case, you would actually be able to see what is the waste cause and do some further analysis into it. We can take a look at the produced quantities based on the various different work centers, so the various different steps that are going on with live data that is going on. You can see the overall OEE from this day that we're taking a look at here, as well as you can take a look at the time codes based on the paper machine here. And there's other different views. You can of course drag and drop and look at this as needed. You can look at the different production quantities versus weight, and then goals that you've set for those days. So you can see on this day they didn't quite meet their goal where the bar is here. In this case, this one is having trouble loading right now. It's the transported quantities that would go out. So it's a nice overview that allows the users in production to have a quick overview of all the relevant data that they need to make an analysis and an evaluation of production going on. So yeah, that's kind of a nice tool to have. So yeah, go ahead.
One addition from my side, please, Bradley. You pushed the tiles from left to the right. That's the reason, because I can use this also with my mobile phone, for example, or with a tablet. So therefore, it's responsive design, and it's very good to see all these information and KPIs. For example, when I'm not in the company, when I'm on a trip, or if I'm at home on holidays, and I can check it with a mobile phone, for example, and then the UI fits to the need of the end device. End device, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an important thing to point out. So, like I said, just we've shown a lot of information today. There's a lot we've gone through. There's of course much more we could show. I'll have to stop sharing now. We're getting into the last 5 minutes of the presentation. So like I said, we've done a lot of work, and we've had a great cooperation with the team at Feldmuehle, and we're very happy that we were able to show that and join today. Like I said, it's an idea to get a good look and feel of some of the various aspects that we've been approaching together with them, and we're happy to work with them as well. We're also happy to answer any comments or questions at this time and get more into detail. If we don't have time today, we're also happy if you reach out and get in touch with me, that we can address it in more detail. But I see we have a couple of questions. Does it make sense to try to answer a couple of them? I saw we had one.
Gerhard tried already to write some of them, some answers.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I can summarize a little, because I already answered them. So maybe
I think it'd be good to say that over so that in case the other participants are curious about that.
Yeah, I used the reply to all feature, but not for all of them, because I'm not sure if this is appreciated. So let me maybe summarize some of the question and add my reply. So one question was, is TrimSuite embedded in S4? And that definitely is the case. TrimSuite in PBDS is a heuristic, and as PBDS is fully migrated to S4, there is no difference in running Trim as a heuristic in a standalone APO or in an embedded PBDS, ePBDS, or MPS as it's called right now. So this is fully available. And then we had some questions on the logic of finding free stock. So the question was, if there is an order, to make an example, for 20 pallets, can some pallets be made out of free stock on the real level, while the remaining part is produced from the table machine? And here we have to explain that this would be possible at the end of the day, because this
free stock identification in the automatic planning is based on what SAP is calling MOP, which is like a little bit of a framework which needs some coding. And depending on how this is implemented, this could be possible. At Feldmuehle, we don't do that. There we clearly defined one strategy of identifying free stock. But it would be possible to take 5 pallets from the finished goods level, while 5 other pallets are produced from free stock on the real level, while the remaining 10 pallets wait for the paper from the paper machine. So that would be feasible. And of course, also something like FIFO or first in, first out, or any other logic requested for picking stock can be implemented, because this MOP does require a little bit of coding. And that, of course, includes the benefit that any logic can be then added there.
Please let me give some addition to this. We decided to do this in several steps because we came from a third-party, very old system from somewhere 1980, something like that. And we decided to not to do all the automation which is possible in one step, because of the fact that at the end, the person in the production, the users of the system, have to be able to use the system and to understand what is happening. So therefore, we decided to just take one order line with one logic. And
all right, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We're running into the last couple seconds, I believe, of the presentation. So we want to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure that we can do that. I believe we had one question left over, but we'll get to that after the fact. A new one came in. But we want to thank everybody for your time today, and thank you for taking the time to join us. And yeah, if you have any comments or questions or would like to get in touch, we'd be happy to tell you more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bradley. And thank you, all of you, for that awesome webcast.